sitting behind a truck right now in traffic. So, point of this quick video, again, I'm on my brother's Nightster here. This is a 2008 Harley Nightster. It's got a very loud exhaust on it. If you couldn't tell, Vance and Hines short shots. I do like riding this bike, but really the topic of this is just, I always like talking about motorcycles. This bike probably wouldn't be a very good first bike, and the reason is it's not like it's overly fast. It just has a lot of torque, and it's a little bit. It takes a little bit of getting used to at low speeds, just because again, the power delivery is not very linear. It's very heavy towards the bottom end, and then it really tapers off at the top. But yeah, I mean, anyone could really start off on any bike for their first bike if they had enough discipline. But you know, if you ride a bike with so much power, it's just a matter of time before you're gonna test it. So it's best to start off on something. Just a little less powerful, that you can get used to actually using all the gears on. So you know, I don't think a 250 is a good idea, just because again, a lot of people, if you watch any videos on any sort of 250 Ninja or 250 CBR, or even the newer Ninja 300s, typically, you know, if you look for those online, people on Craigslist or wherever, or on Facebook, will say, got it as a first bike and rode it for 1,000 miles or rode it for one season, and you know, it's time for me to get more power, right? They want something more. Watch this. So people usually want to upgrade because it's not enough power, and they've gotten very used to it. So you typically won't see a 250 or a 300 or even really a 500 with a ton of miles on them, because people usually just ride them for 1,000 miles and then they move on. Now that doesn't mean they're not out there. I mean, I've seen a couple 250s with like 50,000 miles plus. So it just really depends. But I think a really great starter bike, I think, again, is I think the FZ, like the bike that I have, the FZ, I think is a, you know, you don't want it to be the first motorcycle you've ever ridden, right? Obviously, you know, if you have like a friend that has a dirt bike, or if you have a dirt bike, or if you have like a little, you know, a 250, like a Rebel 250, or one of those bikes that they have when you go to the motorcycle safety class, you really don't want a street bike to be the first bike you ever ride. I started out on dirt bikes and I had no idea how to ride anything. You know, I didn't understand what a clutch was. I was like 16 years old. I had never used it, right? So, but you start off on something that it's okay to drop, and where you can get used to it, and you're not going to be worried if you drop it. So no big deal. So that's what I started out on, and then I just got some more dirt bikes that were cheap. You know, you can go on Craigslist and find a bike like I'm talking about, something that you can just learn on, for less than $1,000 for sure. And you can even find something that's totally road worthy for less than $1,000 that you could ride for multiple years. I'm not kidding, because there's a huge secondhand motorcycle market out there of people who just don't ride their motorcycle. And you know, a bike that's 20 years old, it's not worth much anymore, but it's still totally reliable and dependable. So But as far as like, let's say that you actually know how to ride a motorcycle, because when I went to the safety course, I already knew how to ride a motorcycle. I had been riding for 2 years, so I knew what I was doing. But there were people there that had no idea how to, I mean, they had never sat on a motorcycle before. They had no idea how the clutch worked. They had never sat on a motorcycle. So multiple people dropped the motorcycle and were asked to leave because they had never, I mean, they had zero experience on a motorcycle, and they just thought it would be something fun to do, and then, you know, they ended up not wanting to do it because it was kind of a traumatic experience. So that is also, you know, you want to start off on something where you have someone guiding you, and you know what you're doing, and where you can get just the fundamentals down. And then a basic first bike, again, it's like I would say like not a Super Sport 600, but like a Suzuki Bandit or a Ninja 650, that's the 2-cylinder, or the FZ6 like I have, which is a 600, but it's not the full-blown race bike, and it's not a you're not down in the crotch position or the crouch position. You're more upright. You could even look at like more of a cruiser type style bike, like a Honda Shadow 600, Honda Shadow 750, Suzuki, I think they made like something called the Intruder. You could look at, I had a bike that was totally fine as a first bike. If you find a nicer Honda Twin 450, it's a little underpowered, but very simple to work on, and it was pretty smooth. And there's a couple examples out there, although I'd say that bike's carbureted, so maybe get a Shadow instead, like a Honda Shadow 600 or the Yamaha V-Star 650, I think is what it is. That's more of a cruiser bike, but again, not overpowered, very smooth delivery. It's gonna be a really great bike to learn on, and you could log some serious miles on it, right? So I think those are, even the V-Star 1100, you might think 1100 cc's is big, but it's not. It's not going to be overly fast, and it's going to be smooth, and you know, you could definitely learn on that bike, and you could find examples of a V-Star 650 to a V-Star 1100. You know, a couple of years ago when I was looking for bikes more closely, you could find nice examples from $2,000 to $3,000. A 650, you could find a nice one for $2,000 to $2,500, and then a really nice 1100 you could find definitely for less than $3,500. That had, you know, typically less than 10,000 miles, and it basically looked like a brand new bike, and it was, you know, 10 to 15 years old. So those are good ones to start out on. Any sort of super sport bike, you know, again, if you know how to ride a motorcycle, you can 100%, you can ride those bikes. You're not going to have a problem riding those bikes. It's just a matter of, you know, I can get on one of those bikes and ride it just fine, but you know, there comes a time when you're only using 20% of the bike's power, and then you start opening it up a little bit more, and then you put yourself into a problem situation. So again, I would get a bike where you can actually shift through all the gears. You can experience what it feels like to, you know, be going at different RPM levels in different gears, and you know, actually use the bike's power, because you're never going to use the power of a 1000cc Super Sport or even a 600cc Super Sport, because if you're using the real power of that bike, you're breaking the law big time. So, and to be honest with you, I don't think I'll ever get a bike like that. Like, my brother bought a ZX14, and I really don't know why he did that, because every time you get on that bike, it's just tempting you to go double the speed limit in every single gear. You know, you could go probably up to like 70 or 80 miles an hour in first gear, I'm sure. You know, I was going 100, I think 123 or 100. No, I'm sorry. I only went up to like 112 miles an hour on that bike, but I think I was just barely in third gear. My brother had a ZX10, which he sold, thankfully, but you know, 5 or so years ago, and I remember riding that for the first time. I had never ridden 1,000. I got on that and I was going 123 miles an hour in third gear, and then I said, okay, I'm not riding this again. I really barely felt like I was moving, and I was going 123 miles an hour, and I looked down at my speedometer and I was like, whoa. I mean, it was like an out-of-body experience how fast those things are. And I quickly realized, hey, you know, Josh, if you keep riding these, if you ride these things, you're gonna get, you know, you're gonna get yourself in trouble, because you can't go that fast consistently and not get in trouble from the law, or B, you know, you're gonna hurt yourself, right? So I like to use bikes where I can actually use the power. And sure, my Yamaha will do 100 miles an hour. It'll do 120 miles an hour. Probably even do close to 140 miles an hour, if you really are pushing it. But you have to be pushing the bike very, very, very hard to get to even over 110. You know, whereas with the Ninja ZX10 or ZX14, you know, you could just be basically smoothly accelerating to get up to highway speed, and you know, it's just a quarter turn of the throttle to go from 70 to 120. That's really what it feels like. So I really don't know how they made those bikes street legal.